Hello, welcome to another Tweedy Pubs video. I'm here at Trafalgar Square because it is the central point, more or less, from where all distances to and from London are measured. It's weirdly empty today. I think it's being used as a filming location or something. As a follow-on to that recent video where I was talking about the decline in bitter, being a sort of glass half full sort of a person, I thought I would try and paint a more positive picture and take a wander around from here to see if I can find 5 pubs where I can get a decent pint of traditional English bitter. A couple of people have mentioned in the comments that there are 1 or 2 apps nowadays from some of the breweries that can help you to find pubs where you can find their beer. Going to start with Timothy Taylor, who recently have launched a Find a Pint app, and you can put your location into that and find the nearest stockist that has a Timothy Taylor beer and even select specific beers. Of course, this isn't going to be perfectly accurate. Stocks are going to change slightly from one day to the next, but let's give it a go and see if I can find a pint of Timothy Taylor's Boltmaker near here. I do like Timothy Taylor's Landlord, but that's easier to find in London. Boltmaker, a little bit rarer, and hopefully the app can help with that. I found the Lemon Tree nearby, apparently stocks Boltmaker, so let's go and take a look and see if that is indeed the case. Cheers from the Lemon Tree. I've just bumped into a chap who watches the videos. Hi to Rob from Stoke. He's just the other side of the window here. Feeling a little bit self-conscious having a live audience. So this has been a successful endeavour, and they do indeed have Boltmaker on the bar. And this is a delicious pint. Landlord, of course, is quite common here in London. Timothy Taylor's Landlord, it's a beer you'll often see me drinking in these videos, but Boltmaker is something I don't see a huge amount of. Really enjoyed it on that trip to Manchester. This is a great classic bitter, in my opinion. I think this actually predates Landlord. I think Landlord is something that Timothy Taylor started making relatively recently. Was it 1980s? Possibly a bit before that. I'll correct myself on screen because I'm almost certainly getting this wrong. I'm just doing it off the cuff. And I think Boltmaker, which was formerly known as Timothy Taylor's Best Bitter, goes back much further than that. The hops for this are quite interesting. It's 3 different hops. One of them is our old friend Fuggles. One of them is the Whitbread strain of Golding, and the other is one of the many names for Slovenian Goldings, or Styrian Goldings. I think these are all basically different names for the same thing. Styria is a region of Austria, which borders with Slovenia. It's to the south of Austria. Slightly confusingly, the origin for this hop is that apparently Fuggles were taken there in the early 19th century, and it's bred from that, which doesn't seem quite right to me because Fuggles only emerged here in the 1870s, possibly at the earliest the 1860s, so slightly confusing, but that's got a nice malty flavour, a slightly floral, slightly spicy kind of aroma to it, and it's really nicely balanced. I think there are actually some mineral notes in that, and I almost get a slightly sort of metallic twang, which might not sound that appealing, but I like it here. The colour is also copper. Perhaps that's just suggestive. Perhaps it's just the colour of the sort of copper colour is putting the idea of copper in my mind. It's got that slightly peppery sort of bitterness to it that I really like from those hops. Very drinkable, very pleasant. That's great stuff. We're off to a good start there. Well done to Timothy Taylor for their Find a Pint app. It's working perfectly. I very much fancy a pint of Harvey's Sussex Best, of course. Now, they did have that on the bar there, so this is a little bit artificial. I could have just stayed there and had it there. But let's get out the Harvey's Pub Finder. Again, there is a web app, a website that works on your phone as well as on a desktop computer or a laptop. And although it doesn't let you search for where specific individual beers are sold, it will show you the locations of the Harvey's own pubs. There are only 3 of those in London, and it will also show you stockists. I don't think it actually gives you a complete set of everywhere in London that you can find Harvey's Sussex Best. I think they miss out some of the big chains that stock it, and it's more like the sort of individual, more independent pubs that they list there. But as it happens, just round the corner from here, the Harp stocks Harvey's Sussex Best, so perhaps that's where we'll go next. Cheers from the Harp. Unusually today they've got the windows closed. I don't think the weather's that bad, but perhaps they were expecting rain, and I don't know if it lashes in if the wind's blowing in the wrong direction. The best possible example of Harvey's Sussex Best bitter in London is to go to the Royal Oak in Borough, a Harvey's pub or one of their other Harvey's pubs. I've always thought they're pretty good at keeping their beer here at the Harp, and I think that is a very respectable example. This is without a doubt my favourite bitter. It's always, again, at its absolute tip-top best when it's in a Harvey's pub, and especially down in Sussex, in Lewes, of course. I'm always slightly wary with doing tasting notes for beer because I feel as though the real ale crowd in particular doesn't have a lot of tolerance for very flowery language when it comes to tasting notes. If you get too sort of too poetic with beer tasting notes, people start to glaze over. Slightly floral, aromatic, delicate hoppiness to it. A biscuity kind of maltiness as well. Malted milk biscuits. A little bit of home baking there. There is secondary fermentation in the cask in real ale. It is a product every bit as sophisticated as champagne. And the balance there is absolutely spectacular. It's not sweet, but it's not sour. It's got, I suppose, savoury notes. Again, sort of biscuity, but I'm thinking more cheese biscuits now. And a maltiness and a twang of bitterness and those mineral notes. It's definitely not overly light and lacking flavour, and yet it's also not really overpowering. This is something you can happily drink 5 in a row of, not get bored of, I think. I just think that is, to me, the perfect beer, basically. I know that's a very bold statement to make. Really sticking my neck out by saying a statement like that. But that to me is everything I want from a beer. Perfectly balanced, delicately flavoured, not overwhelmingly so. Interesting, varied, subtle, nuanced. It's got loads going for it. Well done, Miles, head brewer of Harvey's. I think that is an absolutely stellar pint of beer. I seem to now have a hankering for a pint of HSB, which used to be a product of Gale's brewery. Fuller's took over the brewing, and I know this will probably evoke some mixed feelings. I'm sure there will be some who knew it from its days as Gale's, the Hampshire brewer, and think it maybe isn't quite the same now that it's been taken over by Fuller's. Rarely those transitions are achieved completely seamlessly, but I've had it recently, and having been not hugely familiar with it in its former guise, I actually think the current version is pretty good, personally. So I'm going to seek out a Fuller's pub now. Happen to know that the Lamb and Flag is round the corner from here. No guarantees they'll have HSB, but they might do. Let's go and take a look. Alas, no HSB on the bar lineup at the Lamb and Flag, but fear not, we'll find it somewhere. The Red Lion in St James's is always a stalwart for that, if nowhere else. But next, what's next on the agenda then? I feel like something from Badger. Hall and Woodhouse is that Badger brewery. I was in the Ship and Shovel the other day and I enjoyed a pint there, so let's try and find the nearest Hall and Woodhouse pub. I think the Ship and Shovel is the best bet near here for a Hall and Woodhouse / Badger pub. So walk over the Strand, down Villiers Street, whatever it's called, through that little alleyway, and we'll be there. Cheers from the Ship and Shovel. This is Tanglefoot. It's a famous beer from Badger / Hall and Woodhouse brewers. It's surprisingly pale looking, isn't it? I'm not sure if this is classically referred to as a bitter. I found a newspaper mention of it from about 1982 that suggested it was new at that time. Shall I put that on screen just there? So I think it is a beer of the sort of 1980s. It is sometimes referred by third parties as a extra strong bitter. It's 4.7 ABV on cask, usually 5% when in bottles. I don't remember it being quite as pale coloured as this. I don't think that tastes 4.7% either. It's actually quite light tasting, quite refreshing, and there is a sort of fruitiness to it. It doesn't have that kind of mineral pepperiness of the Harvey's Sussex Best back there. It's a very pleasant pint in its own way. Hard to put my finger on which fruit we're talking about here. I don't know, apricots, something like that. Definitely not grapefruit. The hops here are, I believe, Challenger and Goldings. Goldings, of course, an ancient English hop. Challenger is that one from about the 1970s, English hop variety from relatively recent history. Tanglefoot is a reference to the brewer having tripped over while he was creating this or something like that. Is it a bitter? I don't know, but does it feel sort of somehow traditionally English? Yeah, I think it does. I would say that pint of Tanglefoot was all right, but not exactly what I had in mind. I wanted something sort of a little bit darker, a bit more like a classic bitter, classic nut brown ale. So I'm going to head on now. I can't get this thought of HSB off my mind, so I'm going to head towards St James's, where the Red Lion there, I think, is always a pretty reliable stockist of that. Of course, as I said earlier, it is a Fuller's beer, but not all Fuller's pubs do it.
Like most of the other brewers we've seen today, Fuller's does have a feature on their website to help you locate their pubs. Again though, this doesn't tell you which of their beers a given pub stocks. In the unlikely event any brewers are watching this, I think being able to search for a particular beer is a great idea and something I think would really help drive sales. Well done to Timothy Taylor for taking the lead on that.
There we go, Duke of York Street, whereupon lies the Red Lion, one of many in London. Cheers from the Red Lion on Duke of York Street. Didn't quite go to plan, it seems. Even here they didn't have HSB today, but I'll keep trying because it is a spectacular pint. So instead I've gone for a London Pride, good old stalwart of London pubs. I know from anyone outside of London this gets a bit of bad rep, but I actually think it is a solid, decent bitter. Of course it no longer says bitter on the badge pump. Martyn Cornell of the, is it Zethophile blog? I'll put a link in the description. Noticed in 2019 that people were no longer calling things bitter anymore. London Pride definitely had bitter written on the badge pumps prior to that. Now they just call it, what is it, an amber ale or something. And I think that is part of the issue of this apparent deep unfashionability, if that's a word, of bitter currently. It's got nice balance to it. It's got a classic sort of mild hoppy aroma. It's got a little bit of maltiness to it. It's not too sweet. It's not too thick. Nice sort of bitter flavour on the palate, a little bit of savouriness, a little bit of minerality. I think it's a thoroughly decent pint of bitter. That HSB, Gale's, now Fuller's, is proving to be quite elusive. Head on to the other Red Lion. Oh, by the way, this is, and I've mentioned this before on a very old video, that used to be my barber's Briggs. You can still see the signage there. Philip, alas, retired some years ago now, and it's now just been turned into storage for the cheese shop, I think, on the other side. This is still a useful shortcut. This is Ormond Yard. You can get from here through to the back of the Chequers. I might possibly even poke my nose in at the Chequers just to see if they have anything on. This is an unexpected treat. I've just passed the Chequers because it's the other end of that alleyway that I used to get from one Red Lion in St James's to the other Red Lion. And I poked my nose in there, just looked through the door, and they have Timothy Taylor's Golden Best. That was on the bar lineup at Mr. Thomas's Chop House in Manchester. Didn't get around to trying it at that time, but I'd said the next time I see it in a pub, I will. And here it is, and I am indeed trying it. I think this is essentially a sort of lighter version of Boltmaker. It looks like the hops are the same. The ABV is slightly lower. The colour slightly paler, and I would say the overall flavour profile is similar but slightly lighter. It's like a summery version of Boltmaker. It's April now, I don't know if we're ready for summer beers. I've seen this described in some places as a light mild, which is an interesting description. To me, that is just a sort of relatively modest strength slash darkness bitter. Either way, whatever you call it, incredibly drinkable. And I'm pretty happy with that. That's been a nice surprise find. Given that I'm in this neck of the woods, it would be very hard for me personally to not go to the other Red Lion, which is a favourite pub of mine. There we go then, Crown Passage. One of my favourite alleyways. I'm sure I've said this before. It has this wonderful glimpse, if you can block out the sandwich shops and all the other bits of modernity of Georgian London. If you look back over this way, up there, feels very much like you're still in the 18th century, I think. Unfortunately, it does seem we're not seeing the southern end at its best because these building works, whatever is going on here, are still ongoing. So the frontage of the Red Lion is a bit obscured. Cheers from the Red Lion on Crown Passage. This is a terrible place to film because it's a wonderfully, happily vibrant pub. It's pointing this way, it's right. I'm not filming you, gents, sorry. What an absolute treat. Probably had noticed this before, but I'd maybe forgotten Otter Bitter, which to me is an absolute treat because it reminds me of visits to my dad in Devon. I think Otter are a relatively new brewery. They have a mixed offering. You can't hear me, can you, over the guffawing. But amongst them are such treats as Otter Bitter, which I believe is a blend of Challenger and Pilgrim hops. Challenger English hops from the 1970s, I think came out of Y College. Pilgrim, even newer. And this is there to dispel the myths that I eschew anything that has a whiff of modernity. I think Pilgrim hops were developed in the early 2000s, still here in England. Again, subtle, delicate, floral aroma on the nose with a lovely mix of tobacco from the whiff of my fellow drinkers here in Crown Passage outside the Red Lion. Lightly malty, lightly mineral, very, very drinkable, very easygoing. A bitter twang to it, a little bit of sharpness, again those mineral notes. This is a beautiful pint. Love what they do at Otter Brewery with the more traditional styles. I know some of them do veer a little bit more modern, a bit more international, but Otter Ale, Otter Bitter, I think both lovely pints of really quite traditional English bitter. What a lovely backdrop St James's Palace makes to sign off here. I don't think I necessarily achieved everything I set out to achieve today. I had a vague list of beers in my mind that I wanted to drink that I thought were at least sometimes available in London pubs. Not all of them actually were, but you know, that is just the way of things sometimes. I managed to find at least a couple of beers that I wasn't expecting to find. That Timothy Taylor's Golden Best and that Otter Bitter. Both great beers, I thought. But you do need to do your homework. Thanks very much for watching, and I will see you on the next one.